Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. I hope your 2018 is off to a great start. Today I'm sharing another fun way to use alcohol inks, and this is for a marbling technique that is really easy to do, and you can quickly create unique backgrounds. So I have a bunch of background examples to create, and then I will turn them all into cards at the end of the video. I have recently done several alcohol ink videos, and I will link to them here in case you're interested. They all show different techniques. For today's marbling technique, I have a few different colors of Ranger alcohol inks. These are some blues, pools, and greens. I also have a glass dish with about 1.5 inches of water in it. Any dish would work. I think about 1 inch of water is best. And then I also have Ranger alcohol blending solution, which I'll use a little bit later. Now I'm using regular cardstock for most of my examples. This is just a white cardstock. Any white cardstock would work. I'm using Neenah Classic Crest. I also have 2 pairs of self-clamping tweezers so that I can hold the paper and dip it into the alcohol ink. You'll see I do this at first, but then I end up just using my fingers. But I know some people don't like to get their fingers messy. Okay, so into this water, I'm going to put in a few drops of alcohol ink. I do about 3 or 4 drops of each color. Now, the more drops you put in, the more intense your color will be. The less drops you put in, the softer. I'm going bold for this first example. I'm also not going to swirl these together, just so you can see how you can get some crazy variation results with this technique. So the first example isn't my favorite, but I want to show you that you really have control about how much color goes down. I will say it's nearly impossible to get similar results each time, so you just got to play around with it and see what works for you. Now I'm tapping in a bit of Ranger Perfect Pearls. I'm not going to mix this in. I just want kind of clumps of shine here and there on my background. I only did it for this first example. Okay, so now I have my cardstock. I'm going to take it and dip it into one end of the water, and then you'll see it's like the alcohol ink just kind of lays itself down onto the paper and stays there. So when I pull it out, you can see the color is right on the paper and it absorbs right away, and it just needs some time to dry. And that one will definitely look better once it's dry. Now this one, I didn't add any more drops. I left it as is, dropped in another piece of cardstock, and look how soft the results are this time. Because the first cardstock piece picked up most of the color, this just picked up anything that was left behind. Okay, for this next example, I put in some more Perfect Pearls and stirred them around, adding a few more drops of alcohol ink. Notice this is to the same water. I'm reusing that water a few times. And this time I'm dropping in some blending solution. This blending solution kind of moves the alcohol ink. So it moves the color, and you'll get some areas where it's softer looking. Decide to add a little more Perfect Pearl to this one also. And I'll go ahead and dip my paper into it. Watch how that ink just kind of sticks right to the paper, and you can pull it out, and you'll see I have some splotches of color, some swirls of color. I didn't mix the colors, so there will be different colors in different areas. Since I'm reusing this water so much, I was really careful to use colors that blend good together, like blues and greens. If you're using a bunch of crazy different colors, you'll want to clean the water each time. This time I used a lot of green, so you can see how that green kind of fills up the center. You've got some white spots from that blending solution, and then the blue that was left over in the water. Okay, so I went and I got some fresh water. I'm going to do some more, same thing I've done before, same colors. But this time I'm going to add a few drops of the blending solution. You can see that really moves that color. And then I'm going to kind of swirl it around a little bit, just a little bit, and move that color around with my paintbrush. This gives more of a marble look. By the way, that was the end of my paintbrush. You could use a toothpick or anything you want. I'm going to dip my paper in, and you can see the more marbled look that you get with this because I moved it around with the paintbrush. And there are some soft spots because I use the blending solution. And by the way, the back side of the papers are often beautiful too. This one I didn't add anything, I'm just using the leftover water. And look at this soft marble look that you get with that second generation dip. I really like that soft look a lot, and it works great for skies. Okay, going to do a few more here, just adding some more colors. This time I'm really going to move it around with my brush, not adding any blending solution this time. And this time I'm using Yupo paper, which is a synthetic paper that you can't tear. So you'll notice that the color doesn't absorb right away into the paper. You need to set that aside to dry, and the results are beautiful too. So you can experiment with different papers. I just used white cardstock and Yupo paper for today. This one's back to white cardstock again. You can see the much softer look that you get for this one. And there, that back, I just love that. So always be sure to look at the back because sometimes you might like that better. Here I'm just putting big areas like stripes of different colors, swirling it together so I can get more mix, a more marbled look. Dip the paper in and pull it out, and there you get some really cool effects too. Again, when you're experimenting, I do recommend picking colors that blend together well or mix together well, like maybe pink and red or orange and yellow or green and blue as I did today. Okay, so I let these all dry on their own. Take some time to dry because you really dunked that paper into the water. And here you can see how all the results are so very different. I did a bunch of them, and I used most of them on cards today, but some I'll save for later. This background here is that first one I did with lots of bold color, and you can see that bit of perfect pearl that I put in it also. Now you will notice as you look at these that all of these have warped quite a bit because I took a piece of cardstock, dunked it into water, and then let it dry. So it has a lot of warping to it. But you can get rid of that warping, which I end up doing off screen. All I do is take a piece of scrap paper or typing paper, anything thin, fold it in half, put your background inside that typing paper and run it through your die cut machine without any dies. That just puts pressure on it and helps to flatten it out. So you can see I've got a bunch of different backgrounds here. Some are great for underwater scenes, some are great for sky scenes, so I'm going to use them for different things on the cards that I do today. And by the way, I really like that perfect pearl kind of sprinkled in to give it shimmer, but you don't need to add that. You could just use straight up water. Now, if you don't have alcohol inks, you could do this technique with water and your Copic refills. So if you have Copic markers, those are alcohol-based markers, you can use the refills from that to do this technique. However, I like that the alcohol inks are inexpensive, come in a huge variety of colors, and there are so many things that you can do with them. You'll notice some of these have a little bit of silver in them. I put a few drops of silver mixative into some of the water, but it really doesn't mix up or break down much in the water, so I ended up not using it very often. And this one right here, that's the Yupo paper one. Okay, so now I have a bunch of backgrounds here. It's time to pull them together into cards, and I kept my cards very simple. Now for these, I'm using some products from Essentials by Ellen. That's a line of products only available at Ellen Hudson. And the ones I'm using today were developed by my friend Julie Ebersole. This first one is new. It's the Essentials by Ellen Swhale stamp set. This has lots of whale and fish images with really clever sentiments. I thought these were perfect because the images are simple, so they work really well with those fun backgrounds we created, and it doesn't get too distracting. I also have the Artic Pals stamp set, such cute little polar bears and penguins in this one, and again, some fun sentiments. I also decided to use an older stamp set from Essentials by Ellen. This one they did in collaboration with Avery L, and it's called Good Day Mates, and it's got the most adorable animals in it. So I'm going to use the bird and the koala from this one. Okay, so I went ahead and I stamped a bunch of these different images onto some Neenah Classic Crest white cardstock with some Copic friendly Hero Arts Intense Black ink. I then did some coloring with some Copic markers. After I did my coloring, I used my clear colorless blender pen, this is the Zero pen, to create tiny little dots on the coloring. This Zero pen actually kind of erases the ink color, so that's how I get those soft looking dots. And I just thought it was something fun to add to some of the images. After I did all of my coloring, I used the coordinating dies to cut them out. I didn't share the coloring because I thought it was too simple and really not much fancy to it, and I wanted to stick with the techniques. This is the Essentials by Ellen Strands die. This is a new one. It's a square that cuts this wave pattern, and there are so many ways you can use it. Here I die cut it from a piece of 4 by 5¼ inch cardstock, and I'm going to use this kind of like as a window with waves in it over one of my alcohol marble inked backgrounds. So I picked the area of the marbled background that I wanted to use, holding it behind the window and trimming away the excess. All those little excess strips I'm going to keep because I can use those on other cards. Using a Hero Arts Tide Pool ink, I stamped some fish onto this background. However, I should have picked a darker color ink because they really kind of fade away, but that's okay. I didn't notice it till the card was complete. Now I'm putting some strong adhesive on the back of my marbled piece so that it's ready to go onto the card. I'm also putting some strong double-sided foam tape along the back of our window piece. Now I need to place this over this marbled background. And what I have on my work surface there below it is a piece of release paper that I've left over from some double-sided tape. I can position all of this on that release paper and it won't stick to it. So all that exposed adhesive won't stick. It's handy to keep a piece of that release paper on hand so you can do things with adhesive without it sticking to your work surface. I went ahead and added that onto a 4¼ by 5½ inch top folding note card. And by the way, I stamped a sentiment with black ink from that whale stamp set. Then I added the whale with some foam adhesive. I also decided to add some bubbles into the water. So I have this fun pack of sequins here, and there are some tiny little ones that look like little gems, but they're sequins. I put down some strong Collage medium adhesive, and then I'm using my jewel picker to pick up those little sequins and put them into the drops of glue. I just thought these would add a little bit of sparkle in the background for some fun. Next, I put a drop of Ebony Black Nuvo drops right onto the eye of the whale so that there's some dimension to it and it stands out. So you can see that fun alcohol ink marbled background with those waves with that die that I love so much, that Strands die. The little whale with the dots that I created using the Copic colorless blender, and the fun sentiment that matches. Now on this next example, I decided to allow more of the marbled background to show. So I used a large rectangle die and created a window from white cardstock. You can see a lot of the marbling shows. I stamped a sentiment from the Good Day Mate stamp set right along the bottom of the frame, and I also stamped, colored, and die cut the bird from the same stamp set. Now I wanted the branch to be longer that he's sitting on. So I drew my own branch onto white cardstock with a black permanent pen. I'm trimming away the branch that his feet are resting on so that I can replace it with my longer branch. So my branch isn't connected there. I need to connect it a little bit more. And then I will color it with some brown Copic markers and cut it out so it looks like it was part of the image all along. After I cut it out, I glued the bird onto the branch, trimmed it down a little bit, and then I just put it right onto the window. I'm trimming that extra off so I can just tuck the ends of the branches behind the window and nobody will ever know. I like that it fills up that window a little bit more, but still shows a lot of that marbled background. For a little bit of interest, I use my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen to add some shimmer to the bird. It just gives a really nice subtle bit of shimmer that kind of pulls it together with the perfect pearls that I used in the marbled background. I thought this one was fun because you could really use this card design with any stamped image as the focal point and allow a lot of that marbled background to show. Okay, the next example I used an even bigger marbled piece background. So I just trimmed it down so it was a little bit smaller than my white note card, and I glued it to the card. On the bottom there, you'll see some snowbanks that I created using the little pieces left over from that Strands die cut that I showed you earlier. And then I have my little polar bears attached with some foam adhesive. Now the sentiment that I chose to use says happy birthday. So happy birthday like you're cold. I'm not good at saying these things, but you know what I mean. Anyways, I decided to put little party hats on my polar bears. I can not draw to save my life, but I can draw triangles. So I drew two triangles and I cut them out, and I'm gluing the two triangles to the top of their heads so it looks like they're wearing party hats. And later I'll come in and color some stripes on the party hats just to add a pop of color. I also added a tiny pearl to the top of both the party hats, but colored them with a yellow Copic marker so they look like little yellow toppers on the hat. So there you can see the final card. I thought that sentiment went great with the little polar bears with the party hats, and I love that marbled background. It looks really cool on a night sky. I could have used that horizontal or vertical. And then, of course, I use a little bit of Aqua Shimmer pen so that I have some sparkle on the cheeks of the bears. Okay, my next example features my favorite marbled background. I actually created it on a piece of Yupo paper, and the results are just really cool. But I wanted a lot of it to show through, but still use those little waves from that die cut. So I cut the waves out of one of the die cuts, and then I die cut a rectangle window onto another piece of white cardstock. I put some double-sided tape along the sides of the rectangle, and now I'm just stretching some of those little waves across and adhering them on both sides. By doing this, I have a bigger window, and I'm spacing the waves out a little bit more than the other die cut does, just so that more of my background can show. After I've done this, I'm going to assemble my card just like I did before. Everything else is the same, and you can see that it allows more of the marbling to show. Again, I added some of those tiny little sequins for bubbles in the water, and I used the Get Whale Soon stamp. Okay, moving on to another example. This time I actually die cut the marble paper itself. Using that same die, I'm cutting from an area of the marble paper that I like. When I'm done, I take the negative space, and I'm just temporarily taping it onto the front of a white note card. I'm going to use this negative space as a guide to glue down all of these marbled wave pieces. So I end up with them glued perfectly in a square on the front of the card. So I've put adhesive on the back of a wave, and I just pop it right into place into the negative space. It fits in like a puzzle and really doesn't take that long at all. Now once I have all of these waves glued into the negative space, I can carefully remove the tape and the negative space, and I'm left with all the waves arranged perfectly in a square, and it just looks so cool. It's just another way to use this fun die. On top of this, I went ahead and I adhered a little whale, also added some little bubbles with the sequins, and a sentiment stamped with black ink. You could also do a fun die cut inlay technique using this die, but I thought this one was fun where you kind of have it popped up instead. Okay, so another example. This time I wanted to use the little penguins, and I wanted to use only some of the waves, just the ones on the bottom, so it looked like some slopes. So what I did here was die cut it from some white cardstock, and I'm using my craft knife to cut away all the waves on the top portion of this. Again, I'm going to keep a couple of the waves on the bottom so that it looks like a little snowbank that he's sitting on. After I cut all those waves away, I assembled the card just like I did the others and added the little penguin and the sentiment. Very simple, but I thought that marbling was really nice and soft looking, and I didn't want to add too much to it. Okay, so I have several other examples that I just wanted to show you. This one, I loved this marble piece. It was just so unique. So I kept that piece large, added some little snowbanks on the bottom, some polar bears. I also added little sequins for snowflakes falling down, and a cute little sentiment. This one I really wanted to show as much as I could of that background. Okay, on this next one I wanted to show you a quick trick. So I did a black Nuvo drop for the eye, and I let it dry completely. Then I came in later and I put a tiny dot of white Nuvo drop right on top of the black. So it adds like a little highlight on the eye and makes it stand out even more. Again, this card design is just like the ones I did earlier. I added some sequins to the background and a simple stamp sentiment. Now I also wanted to use the cute koala from the Good Day Mate stamp set, and I used one of the marbled backgrounds that looks like a sky. So this one was simple. I just trimmed it down, added it to a note card with some foam tape, and added black Nuvo drops to his eyes and his nose. Okay, so there you have a bunch of cards and a bunch of alcohol ink marbled backgrounds. I hope you'll give this technique a try. It is really fun to do. I link all the supplies I use below in my YouTube description, but you can go to my blog for more information. I appreciate you spending time with me today, and I hope to see you again soon.